Hello everyone and welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday. I am Allison with the blog A Glimpse Inside, and today I have this fun little fall arrangement, kind of like in a milk jug. September is here, fall is right around the corner, and here in Germany the weather has been pretty fall-like for a while. So I thought it was the perfect time to bust out a fall painting. This needs 5 stamps, a couple different stamp sets. I think all 5 are in different ones. But it won't take us too long, and so let's get started. First, this is a 4x4 painting. So nothing crazy, just a good old square. And then the stamps that we will use from the clay pot set, the actual clay pot. From the fall set, I'm using this set of berries. I think it's that set. Could be this one. I don't know. I'm using one of the berries. So use whichever one, or you can use this little one if you'd like. From the watering can set, I am using this center one. It kind of reminds me of a hydrangea. So doing like a hydrangea bloom. From the wooden chair mini set, I'm doing this fun little set of flowers. And then from the branches set, I'm doing this like a singular little squiggly one over here. So, all right. And then as for the colors, I'm doing number 18 dark brown, number 45 sepia, number 6 brown, number 27 olive brown, number 17 steel blue, number 88 terracotta, number 28 English red, and then lastly number 86 African violet. So we got a lot of muted fall tones this time, and let's get started. Oh, if I can get my paper. Okay, so again, this is just a 4x4 square. Nothing crazy. And then we're going to start with the clay pot. And we are going to do our traditional 2 color ink. So I'm going to start with African violet. And then follow it up with sepia. Okay, so then I'm going to stamp this center, but towards the bottom, because I want to make sure I leave plenty of room for my foliage. All right, so there is our soon-to-be clay pot. So I'm just going to dip my brush in water, pinch it off, and I'm going to start by dragging this color out of the lines. So I'm going to start right here because it's kind of like a side shadowy thing, and I'm just going to kind of make that little spot right there pretty dark. And then I'm just going to feather this color out of the lines. I'm going to extend it, as far as you want. I'm going to come across the bottom here. And then same thing on this side. Drag this color out. Since this is a round object, the sides will be darker. We're going to leave the center white or very light with color for a highlight. So I am going to come right across the top under that line, just because I feel like it would have like a slight lip because it's a pretty thick line. So I want this to be a little darker for a shadow. And then again, I'm just kind of feathering this color towards the center. And then I'm just going to work my way up the container. So for each little line, I'm going to work individually in each section. So right here, I could, I'm fine with that. It gets really dark. kind of underneath that handle. And then I'm just going to feather that color out. And then same thing on this side. And feather this color out. If you get too much color, like just kind of stain on your brush, go ahead and just rinse it, and then you can just go over some of this if it's a little too dark. I don't want quite so dark up there. Okay, and then I'm just going to drag just a little bit onto the bottom side of these handles. I don't want too much. And then right inside those handles, I'm going to just paint that solid because that would be very dark. It's kind of hard to tell on the picture, I think. Oh, there we go. Okay, and then same thing. I'm just going to kind of come in these little sections and just continue leaving my highlight in the center until I get it how I want it. Okay, so there's our first layer of the color drag. So now on my palette, I'm going to stick, do some number 6 brown. Again, I use the Marvy La Plume 2s. You can use Tombows. So just kind of, if you use Tombows, just kind of use whatever you think is similar. And then this is also number 18 dark brown. So I'm going to start with the dark brown. And I'm just going to go right back over everything that I just did. So I'm going to do like the same exact pattern of how I painted it. I'm going to start at the base section, and I'm just going to feather right over that first layer. And this will just kind of darken it this brown and give it some depth with that first darker coat that we did. So then the same thing, I'm going to take some just water, and I'm just going to kind of feather this towards the center a little bit, because I don't want this to be completely like all the way white. Because technically with a reflection, you still see color. It's just magnified and very bright. All right, so there's that bottom section. And then I'm just going to work my way up here. If you don't cover all of that first color drag coat, that is fine. It just gives it some dimension. You don't have to cover everything back up. I picture this as like a super old milk jug. It's been sitting out in a barn. Got some age to it. Maybe the finish is chipping away. So you'll see, you know, multiple colors kind of shining through, like the metal, and maybe it was painted. So, okay. So now I'm going to take the regular brown, which is very orangey. Almost like a rust color. And since it is like a rust color, I'm going to bring this in as like an additive, you know, of some rust on the item. Again, maybe it's been sitting in a barn and you run across it and it's just got some well-aged characteristics about it. So, same thing, I'm starting at the bottom and just working my way up and around the jug here, container. You can add as much or as little of this as you like. I'm going to kind of get really watery here for a second, pinch my brush off, and then I'm just going to feather some of this color. I don't want it to be super sharp lines. So if you have any spot that's like really dark and you just want to lighten it up, just take a wet brush to it and it will soften any of those sharp lines that you have. Okay, our container is done being painted. I'm going to give this 1 second to kind of dry all the way. And And then I'm going to come back with just my sepia tip and anything that may have got a little too pulled out, any of the lines kind of washed away a little bit. I'm just going to draw them back in here using my sepia. So like right down here, kind of wash those little lines out. And then I'm just going to kind of go into those handles a little bit more and add that character back into it here. All right. So there is our lovely clay pot. So now we're going to add our foliage, and I don't want any of the foliage to cover the pot. So I'm using some Post-it tape. You can use a Post-it note and just rip it. But I tore my Post-it tape into 2 pieces because I'm going to try to, I want to see right where my pot ends. So I'm going to put the corner of this piece right on there at the top. Kind of a little more. And that way, this side is covered, but I know that the top of the container stops right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side and just overlap that first piece. And as you can see, I use this Post-it tape already for a different painting, for my sample painting. So, you know, you can just reuse it and keep going. So now I know my pot ends right onto the edge of these 2 areas. So I won't have to worry about, you know, after I stamp, like I have a random bloom just hanging out somewhere. And then we are going to start with the one that I call like a hydrangea. And I'm going to ink up the top of it with the English red. And then follow it up with, or the stem will be the olive brown. So I did the stem, and then I'm going to take a little bit of this brown or green and just stick it into the bloom itself. Since hydrangeas, as they get older, they kind of turn that green brown color. So I'm just kind of doing that to show it more aged. And then I'm going to stamp this hydrangea over towards the left side of the pot. And then I'm going to do another one kind of more centered. Okay, so that one we're not doing any water yet. So now I'm going to come to this flower that kind of has like the 5 little blooms. The blooms for this one are going to be the terracotta. Okay, and then the stems again are going to be this olive green color. If you go over the red with this olive brown, like how I did on this one, you're going to want to scribble off on your palette your marker to get rid of any of the red that may be left behind. So I am going to then just kind of add the sky towards this half of the pot. There we go. And now we'll move on to our berries. So the berries, I'm doing the English red again. And then the stems, I'm just going to do dark brown just to get them nice and dark. And let's see, we're going to kind of tuck some right in the center here. Maybe a little coming out this way. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, and then lastly is our little branch. So the branch can be a little tricky. So this is what I like to do for the branch. I'm only going to ink up a little bit of it. Even that's probably too much. And then I'm going to place the top of it where I want that to come out. And then this one's like pretty fun that you can just, let's spin it over and we'll get a little bit looser of a branch. You can add as many of these little sticks as you want. Don't do them at all. It's totally up to you. You can connect some together just to make it more like wispy, wisteria. I love just like fun curly branches. Okay, and that is all we're going to do for right now. So we're going to remove our Post-it tape here and get our paintbrush. And I'm going to start with my red blooms, and I'm just going to do normal and dab. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of white space just to not make it so solid. If you make it solid, it's fine. But I'm just going to try to leave a little bit, and then I'm just going to extend that red out just a little bit there. All right, I'm going to rinse my brush. Ooh, too much water. I'll have to fix that one. Okay, so there's my orange flowers. And then for my berries, I am just gonna like, just touch them just because the color deepens a little bit when you add water to it. So I'm just gonna touch the berries and then we'll come back to them in a moment. Okay, so now for the branches. Since some of them are just obviously kind of hanging out here without a way into the pot, I'm just going to take the thin end of my dark brown marker and I'm just going to like imagine where they would go and just freehand them into the pot. So you can make them a little thicker. So let's just say this one comes down about here. We'll just say like that one ties into that branch. This one will kind of come through here. And this one will kind of tie into that one down low. So if you want, like I said, you can just kind of add some other little curls to it. Maybe you're like, oh, you know, I have an empty kind of spot right here. Well, just once you take an offshoot of this one, I'll come up to that hydrangea and just kind of tuck one in right there. So don't be scared. Just kind of add some little lines. If you want, start with a pencil to freehand it so you are happy with their placement. Okay, so next, back to the berries. I'm going to take the thin end of my red and I'm just going to kind of add a dark kind of side to those berries just to give them some more dimension. So I'm just kind of give them little dots to go darker on the bottom. And then I'm also going to take this and I'm just going to kind of go back and add some dots into my hydrangea blooms. Again, just for some like texture and so they're not so flat. Same thing with the orange flower, especially this one that I accidentally had way too much water on my brush. I'm just going to go in and add the dots just to get the texture kind of back in them. And there you have it. If your green stems are a little too light, just go back in with the tip of that as well. Or even like your berry stems, just go over everything. If you're like, oh, those berries just kind of look like they're floating there. So just drop back in. Super simple. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of this olive brown on my palette. And I'm just going to kind of give this a little base ground that this is sitting on. Since, I don't know, I can't have things just floating into space here. So it doesn't have to be a whole bunch. A little bit of water. just something to ground. Oh, somehow I got some dark. A little chunky of African violet right there. And then so anywhere that I took off that red from my green, I'm just going to kind of go back in with that color and just kind of make a little shadow on the ground with it. So there you go. And then the very last thing we're going to do is with some steel blue, I'm going to take a really watered down brush. And I'm just going to kind of add some of this blue in. And I'm going to feather it out so it's super light, just because I feel like this color is pretty bright. So I don't really want the blue to show up too much. And then I'm not going to do very much of it. I'm just going to kind of surround the outside of the pot. And just to kind of show it's sitting outside. Maybe it's on like a table. You know, just, you don't have to do this part. You can just leave it. You don't even have to give it a little base down there. And there, we are done. Take my olive brown, sign and date it. And there we go. Perfect to frame, pop it on a shelf for fall. Yeah, fun little accessory. Turn it into a card and perfect for the changing seasons. I hope you enjoyed this and follow along with me. I'd love to see any creations that you've done, so please tag me on social media and stay tuned till next week when there's an all new watercolor tutorial. Thanks for joining me. Bye.